In today's episode of the Motorhome Matt podcast,
we unpack UK seatbelt laws for motorhomes and campervans.
In the news, we want you to help us back British holidays.
Woohoo! And we answer your questions on reversing camera issues, driving licence changes, and using a Chevron on a bike rack.
Welcome to the Motorhome Matt podcast. I'm Keith Gooden.
And I'm Motorhome Matt.
Industry insights and expert advice for the world of motorhomes, caravans and campervans. And it's brought to you by thatleisureshop.com and sponsored by Ripe.
Now remember to follow on your favourite podcast app and please click subscribe if you're watching on YouTube.
Straight into the news, and we are calling on the government to step up and back British holidays. That's providing financial support for businesses and also helping holidaymakers to get out and about in the British countryside once again. There's a petition, isn't there, Matt?
There is, yeah. These are the words from Out and About Live, our friends who run magazine and all the Warner's shows, and they have launched this brilliant petition to help back British holidays, and you can sign their petition and read for resources to help you support British tourism yourself. Just head to outandaboutlive.co.uk/back British holidays.
I'm going to repeat that. It's outandaboutlive.co.uk/back British holidays.
Don't forget your hyphens.
You forgot your hyphen. What's M&M magazine? It's not about little chocolate.
Motorhome Monthly magazine, yeah.
I gotcha. That's outandaboutlive.co.uk/back British holidays.
So it's time for our regular feature here on the Motorhome Matt podcast. It's the Warner's show feature, and this week we're off to Campervan Campout, and I'm joined by Michael from Warner's and Max, and we'll unpack who Max is in a little while. So, Michael, just tell us a bit about Campout. Firstly, when is it?
It is the 2nd to the 4th of May, and it's at the South of England Showground in Ardingly.
Ardingly, sorry. The locals all call it Ardingly. So it's the bank holiday weekend, 3 nights of camping. This is a slightly different type of event in the Warner's calendar to all the others. What's different about it?
So this is definitely more of a festival than a traditional show, being that in the traditional shows there's only music in the evenings, there's music all day and evening at this one, and there's more activities going on, and it brings in the self-build world of the campervan world, which you don't have at the traditional shows.
Yeah, and it's far more of a music festival type event, isn't it? There's a trade show, so there's motorhomes, campervans for sale. The trading area is a little bit smaller than some of the main shows you do, but there's a lot more entertainment going on, isn't there, as you say, throughout the day and into the evening. Now, the Advice Centre is a big highlight of this event, the Campout Hub, but there's other presentations going on as well. What's happening?
So over the weekend there's over 40 different talks or workshops across 2 stages. So you've got the Campout Hub, which has your inspiration, and on Sunday we've got Creators Day, and then there's the self-build stage with all the talks about self-builds, and then there's foraging workshops, there's wellness workshops, bushcraft, and Mark from Van Life Eats there doing cooking demos and cooking workshops, so you can get hands-on and do some cooking, and there's lots more going on.
It's an amazing event. It's one of our favourite events of the year. So Max, then you're co-hosting with me in the hub, the Campout Hub, but who are you?
Who am I? That's a very good question, isn't it? I'm a designer maker. I build campervans, I design small spaces, most famously known for designing George Clark's caravan on Amazing Spaces.
Okay.
You might not like that. You're not a fan of caravans, are you?
I was going to say the big thing that went wrong was the fact it was a caravan, but I understand it fell apart after the show was broadcast.
So I'm really pleased to know, I was trying to avoid that, but yes, it looked great on camera. It maybe fell apart and required a little bit of snagging, I think we call it in the trade.
So there's snagging is a word for it. Burning would be the one I'd use. So and you're going to love the fact that this show, there is a self-build show where you're going to get loads of hints and tips, and building stuff on wheels is your passion, isn't it? But tell us a bit more about the stuff you're talking about at the show.
So I'll be talking about sustainability. That's high on my agenda. I drive an EV van and I'm fascinated by the future of sustainability and how we can reduce our carbon footprint. Upcycling, I'm a lover of reusing pallets and scaffold boards and reclaimed materials. Again, not buying new where possible. Then I'll also be talking about presenting and little top tips I've learned along the way, working with people like George and Kirsty Alsop and Gokwan on how to present to camera how to create short, sharp, succinct little sentences for camera. If you're starting a YouTube channel or an Instagram account, ways that you can really make that easier for yourself.
Well, I'm really excited about the Sunday because that's the Creators' Day. Michael, just tell us who else is speaking on the Sunday as part of this themed day.
So because there's so many different creatives that like to come to the festival, we thought we'd put a whole day on how to improve different areas of social media and stuff. So we have Darren, the other Motorhome, doing a talk on growing YouTube. We've got Gemma and Campbell from Highlands Dynamics and some guests talking about Instagram. And then there's a general about marketing and creating a brand. There's Jackie, who is a publisher. She's going to do a talk about storytelling and how to jot down your travels in an easy way to then turn it into a story. And there's a workshop on planning a road trip to Europe and then presenting on the Sunday.
We've been recording this at the Yorkshire Motorhome and Campervan show in March, and as we've done so, there are only 200 camping pitches left at Campervan Campout, so you need to act quickly. Day tickets are also available. They're unlimited. Use the code MATT to get £5 off, and to do that and find out all about Warner's shows, head to mhmp.info/shows.
It's the Motorhome Matt podcast. I'm Keith Gooden.
And I'm Motorhome Matt.
And it's brought to you with thatleisureshop.com and sponsored by Ripe. Let's get into the main bit of this week's podcast, seatbelts. We're talking about them again. Why?
I keep seeing the topic coming up on social media channels. I think there are now so many newbies in the market. We've discussed this in the past, but there's a little bit of naivety around the rules for seatbelts and the laws. And I thought, you know what, let's do a definitive on what are the rules about carrying passengers in a motorhome or campervan. Is that all right?
That's fine. And let me just state for the record that the seatbelt laws are there to prevent injury during an accident, and that could be a small bump or it could be an accident which may endanger your life, and I'm sick and tired of hearing people saying I don't wear a seatbelt because it infringes my human rights. What about the human rights of passengers and the human rights of the NHS staff that have to scrape you up off the ground and the police? So that's why we're doing it.
You finished?
Yeah. Sorry about the rant, but I had to do that. You're saying lots of newbies in the market.
Yeah.
So just let's take it from the bottom up. So the wearing of seatbelts regulations 1993. That's what we're talking about.
It's very exciting. Yeah, I was reading it again the other day prior to doing this. I think one of the problems as well is, as an industry, salespeople are guilty of making the rules grey. So it's quite commonplace. You buy a motorhome that sleeps 6. It's only got 2 seatbelts in the front, but there are 6 beds in the back, and it's called a 6-berth motorhome. And this creates the illusion that 6 people can travel in it. They can't. And it's when a salesperson says, yeah, it'll be all right, there's plenty of room, people are not allowed to travel in those seats. So there are rules about this. So the seatbelt regulations have themselves been on a journey through time. I'm just going to unpack them and cover them off. So the original laws were introduced in the 70s. So if your motorhome was built before 1988, that's very old, only the front passengers, so the driver and passenger, had to wear a seatbelt. And then post 1988, those seatbelts had to be a 3-point, so one that goes up over your shoulder, not a lap belt.
In that old motorhome, then, the people travelling in the rear, behind the main passenger and the driver, didn't have to wear a seatbelt.
Correct.
And still don't.
And still don't, provided the motorhome was built before 1988, or if it's after 1988, there has to have 3-point belts in the front. So passengers can travel in the back of that. But we saw sense and realised that was dangerous. So I'd still recommend not carrying passengers in the back of a vehicle that old, because they're going to be unsafe. And then on the 20th of October 2007, the seatbelt rules changed again, where it required all travelling seats must be identified by the manufacturer and fitted with a seatbelt.
So that's not all seats, that's just seats that you can travel in.
Correct.
When the motorhome is driving along a road.
And this is where people fall foul of the regulations. And these are regulations, this is not law. So if you've got 4 travelling seats in total, the driver, the front passenger, and 2 forward-facing seats in the back with a seatbelt, 3-point belt, and then you've got additional rear-facing seats, if they're not dedicated as travelling seats or designated as travelling seats, nobody can travel in them. And this is where the kind of grey area comes in for people. The rule is people must sit in a designated travelling seat with a seatbelt, and if a seatbelt's fitted, it must be worn.
And how is that designated, and how do you know it's a travelling seat?
So, since then, manufacturers have been required to put a sticker on the travelling seats, and ones that are not travelling seat usually have a picture of a person in a seat with a red line through it. So it's a circular, like a road sign, and it has a diagonal red line through it to say this is not a designated travelling seat.
Yeah, the red line isn't a seatbelt.
Correct. No, it's not. It's not very good. It's a red line that says, no, don't do it. And this is where people go wrong. So sideways seats are definitely not recommended. They are accepted to be dangerous, and they are not a clever idea. I've seen motorhomes fitted with side seat belts, and they're just dangerous simply because our spines don't bend sideways. In an accident, we want to fold in half, forward or backwards. So it's travelling seats are always forward facing or rearward facing. It's important to note as well, a rearward facing seat can be fitted with a lap belt, so just a 2-point belt that goes over your lap. That's fine. But if you want to fit extra seat belts to a motorhome, you could, and there's a number of things to consider. One is available payload, so the ability for that motorhome to carry those extra passengers, and you must inform the DVLA that the number of designated seats has gone up, or even gone down if you're taking seat belts out.
Matt, just hang on a second. It doesn't matter, does it? Like, I've got the seats, I'm taking the family, I've got the dog as well. We get in, most people are belted up. I don't go too fast. I mean, when you're driving at 50 or 55, at the most, who's going to know?
Well, nobody would know technically, and the issue is if a police officer saw that you were carrying more people than they felt was reasonable for that motorhome, or you had an accident, the driver is liable then for dangerous driving potentially, and also under the Regulation 100 of the Construction and Use Regulations or the Road Traffic Act, a police officer could convict the driver, and that could involve a prison sentence if prosecuted.
Yeah, for dangerous driving, maybe particularly if somebody lost their life or was injured, they call it life-changing injury, so you can only imagine what they're like. So this isn't nanny state stuff. This is about keeping people alive and making sure that you don't end up another police or NHS statistic. So Matt, I've got my motorhome. I understand the seats that people can travel in. But, we've had an extra child, or, I'm taking my brother's 2 kids with us as well. How do we get round issues like that? Things which don't affect us all the time, but which might be unusual. Do we just not put them in and not go on holiday?
There are very specific rules around carrying children. If there's no seatbelts in the back, you can't carry a child in the back if they're under 12 or 1.35 metres tall. And there are groups, aren't there, for car seats. Do you remember this? If you go back in time to when your son was much smaller, as group 0, 1, 2, 3, based on the child's weight and their age. And you can find all of those guidelines online. So those apply in a motorhome as well. And if you're carrying a baby and they're rear facing, turn the airbag off if they're in the front. But they have to be clipped in. That is the rule. Travelling in a motorhome without a seatbelt, where there are no available seatbelts, is not specifically outlawed, but it is highly frowned upon and it is not safe, and that's why these regulations exist, and they are guidelines there to keep us safe. I remember speaking to a friend of mine who's now a retired police officer, and he used to say the RAF for years acknowledged that a seatbelt would save the life of a pilot in an aeroplane in the event that they ejected and they stayed in the seat. He said, I know we don't eject people out of driving a car, but why is the motoring industry taking a different view on seatbelts? Why is it taking so long to introduce these rules? We know that seatbelts keep us safe. And do you remember the campaigns, clunk clip every trip?
Oh yeah.
And people have adopted the rules and the guidelines very well, but they are there to protect us, and making, saying, I can carry whoever I want in the back of my motorhome whenever I like is silly. It's not clever, and you could be prosecuted if you were caught doing it.
Yeah, and even if you have a bump, it's a fairly minor bump, and the police do attend and they take a look and they see that you are not following the guidelines, they will probably prosecute you to the full force of the law. Especially if they see children, it won't be just a quiet word in your shell like, and you go on and fix it in the next 3 months. So they do take these things very seriously. Remember, even at say 50 to 20 miles an hour, you decelerate quickly, you slam those brakes on. Not only do all your internal organs start moving forward, then anybody who's unsecured in the back, dogs as well, they'll start flying forward, won't they?
Well, exactly, and it's worth mentioning dogs as well. They have to be clipped in when travelling. We often see people that are 4-belted motorhome, there's 4 people in it and they've got 2 dogs. You can clip the dog to an existing seatbelt. You don't have to have 6 seatbelts. You can buy dog clips which have a dog collar or harness is much better for a smaller dog, and a carabiner, you know, the thing with the little lever that like climbers use.
Oh yeah.
It's perfectly acceptable to clip those around a seat belt, and so you and the dog are attached to the same seat belt. That's fine, and this is about stopping the dog becoming a dangerous load in the back of the vehicle that's loose and could fly forward and could kill the passenger.
Yeah, go through the windscreen and hit somebody in the street. I'm not joking. These things do happen. One thing I've always wanted to ask you about travelling with dogs. Can you have little sort of dog kennel things to
crates
travel with?
Yeah, you can. And again, it's about securing the crate. So if your dog doesn't like travelling and they're happier in a crate because that's their happy place, then put them in a crate and secure the crate and stop that becoming a dynamic load in the back of the motorhome and could come loose. So fix that to the floor, strap it down or do something, but the dog contained in a crate is acceptable.
I've got you. So, have we covered everything, or is there more?
No, I think that's everything. The law, my point is, it's not grey. Common sense prevails. It really is the case of be sensible and be safe. And if you're in a seat with a seatbelt, you must wear it. And one last thing, though, just before we wrap this up, is if you don't know how many designated seats your motorhome has got, check your V5. It will say on there. It will say 2, 4 or 6
your V5
or 5.
is what? That's your document, isn't it?
Yeah, the registration document, the red and blue thing that you get when you get the vehicle in your name. Check that has the number of designated seats on it. He's waving one around.
It's the Motorhome Matt podcast. I'm Keith Gooden.
And I'm Motorhome Matt.
And it's brought to you with That Leisure Shop and sponsored by Ripe.
Get 15% off your insurance premium by using the code MotorhomeMatt over the phone, or simply click the link in the description.
It's our Q&A, our questions and answers, where you ask the questions and Motorhome Matt, for it is he, is the expert, and he will give you the answers. And if he doesn't know, he'll ask somebody who does. First of all, Bruce Ryan is in Hull.
Hi Matt, this is Bruce from Hull. I recently bought an Adria Matrix costing almost £100,000. Had the motorhome now for 2.5 months, and the reversing camera has stopped working. Having looked on the Adria forums, this is a very common problem within the Adria models, with lots of people having the same problem. Having contacted my dealer, they have said that it is a problem out of their control and there is nothing they can do about it until Adria can supply a new camera. The earliest that Adria have suggested a new camera will arrive is the end of March, but this could be April or May. As I'm due to set off on a 5-month European tour, this is not ideal. Is it reasonable to expect Adria to come up with an alternative solution when a reversing camera can be purchased from any of the online retailers for under £100? Your thoughts would be welcome. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Bruce. Well, there you go then, Matt. It's another one about customer service, isn't it? He's gone to his dealer. The dealer says nothing to do with us. It's Adria, and they're saying, no, we're recording this in mid-March. So, at the soonest, he might have it fitted in a couple of weeks' time. At the worst, it might be 2.5 months' time. They say. What is going on?
Bruce submitted this question to us sometime at the end of February. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. So honestly, I don't think that's a bad lead time for a part from a manufacturer based in Europe, because they've got to get that part ordered, get it to your dealer, and then they've got to organise getting it to you and fitting you in to fit it. But that's still, nonetheless, as you say, you spent 100k. That's a long time for a camera it is a known issue. You're right. The reality is, though, Bruce, it's probably not a £100 camera on the back of your motorhome. It's probably what's called a Camos camera or some other make, and they are £300-400 plus. So these are a specialist bit of kit. You have no choice. If this is going under warranty, your dealer is going to have to wait for Adria to supply it. You could fit a cheap £100 camera for your trip if you really want the reversing camera working, and then get the right one fitted when you get back from your trip. Otherwise, you are just going to have to wait it out. It's frustrating, I know, but this is not an Adria part. It's supplied to them, and they have to go off and get it, and then get it to the dealer, and so on. So it is frustrating, but that is the reality of motorhome ownership. That is true.
So you say it's a known issue. It means a lot of cameras are frying, are they?
Well, I'm not sure what's failing on them. I've had numerous cameras fail across all sorts of makes of motorhome, and we've replaced them ourselves or under warranty, the aftermarket warranty. But it does strike me as peculiar. If it's a known issue, why aren't there boxes of them in the UK ready to be dispatched for next day delivery?
Precisely.
I don't know the answer to that. That is a question for the manufacturer.
Yeah, and we will ask that question directly of Adria. I'm sure somebody connected with them would either watch or listen to this podcast. So please let us know if it's a known problem. How comes it takes so long to put it right in dear old Blighty? Is it because we're not a part of the EU anymore, or is there some other reason? And who are you sourcing your components from, Adria? I can, as you say, go out and buy a £100 one and it won't fail. These ones, £300 or £400.
Well, no, that's not true. The £100 one will fail as well. The issue for Bruce is that he's feeling he spent £100,000. This should be quicker, and it should be quicker. You're right. And this is not necessarily an Adria fault. It's not fair to throw them under the bus.
Well, not throwing them under the bus, but they're clearly sourcing something which fails.
Yes, as all the manufacturers are. The manufacturer of the camera is the problem, and they should be putting product in the UK so that there's an available stock for the end consumer to get access to quicker. That is something that is still broken in our industry and continues to be, and it frustrates us all.
Keep us posted, Bruce, in Hull. Paul's in Belfast. He says, I'm an insulin-injecting diabetic, so no C1 licence. All my shortlisted vans are 3,500 kilograms plus. I know you don't have a crystal ball. Oh, he's got two.
Steady.
But if I wait to purchase for, say, 2 years, is it likely licence changes will mean a Cat B licence will allow me to drive up to 4,250 kilos? Also, can we also assume that if this does happen, the government will decide to increase the road tax on motorhomes that were between 3,500 and 4,250 to the same rate as, say, 3,500 kilogram vans? Just to finally add a further twist, another one. I live in Northern Ireland, so a change in EU law could end up applying here, even if it doesn't in the mainland GB. That is very true. It might well do, Paul.
Yeah, so let's just start at the beginning. So the EU Parliament are reviewing the driving licence. We've done a whole episode on this. Will UK driving licences change? And I unpack what was called the fourth directive on the driving licence. It will allow a B licence to drive 4,250. The reason is because electric vans or non-fossil fuel vans, EVs, can be 4,250 on a B licence to allow for batteries and workable payload. And the argument is, well, if an E-van can do it, why can't a petrol or a diesel van do it? And that's what the EU Parliament are considering, along with a lot of other changes to the driving licence. Now, we used to be part of the EU, if you remember, and so our driving licences were issued previously in the EU. We're not anymore. So this change would not automatically affect us. However, for Paul, being in Northern Ireland, if it's introduced in Europe, it probably would affect you because of where you are. The question then is, when is this going to be introduced? I've been tipped off it's likely to be this year. I am following this very closely and we'll report on it as soon as we hear for sure. Then the question comes, when would the UK government adopt it, and if at all? The likelihood is they will. We tend to follow suit with EU rules, and it would be very sensible for us to do so as we move to e-vans. So we'll keep you posted. I think there is a strong chance, given that you're in Belfast, that within 2 years you could be driving 4.25 tonnes on your B driving licence.
David B. Jones is in Ammanford, it's in Wales. He says we're about to take delivery of a new Auto Roller 747, complete with a bike rack for 4 bikes. We do not have bikes, and the bike rack will never be extended. Will we therefore need to have a Chevron panel attached, or can we travel without the panel? Thank you. Absolutely brilliant podcast.
No, thank you.
It's Welsh, I'm sorry. I apologise.
I would suggest if your bike rack is folded up, you don't need to fit the Chevron. It only applies to items that stick out further than a tow bar. So a tow bar is an exception. You don't have to do anything about that. If the bike rack's folded up, don't worry about the Chevron. You could take the bike rack off. If you're not going to use it, why keep it on there? It's really simple to remove. A couple of bolts, have a look at it, you'll figure it out. Leave the rails fitted to the back of the van, just detach the bike rack. If you're worried, fit the Chevron. There's no harm in fitting it, but there are rules about the Chevron. Firstly, if you're going to Italy, they have to be metal. The rest of Europe, they can be a foldable plastic, and the Chevrons have to point to the centre of the road you're travelling on. I've never met anybody that's got out and changed the direction of the Chevron board when they've crossed the channel or you cross the channel on the ferry, but that is the rule. So now you know.
There you go. So today we've had your tow bar sticking out and your crystal balls. How about that? If people want to get in touch, what should they do?
We would love it if you did. Just head to mhmp.info/ask Matt, fill in the form or record your question. Just remember to tell us where you are.
And if you're looking for trusted brands and services, then make sure you visit the Motorhome Matt approved directory. It's at mhmp.info/approved. That's mhmp.info/approved.
And can we ask you a little favour? If you know somebody that would find this podcast useful, interesting, or maybe entertaining, please would you share it with them, whether they're a friend, a neighbour, whoever it might be. We would love to spread the word of the podcast just a little further and help some more people. Thank you.